So any new cases up in Morgan?
Yeah, we had one more today and 2 yesterday and 2 the day before. We've been averaging 2 for the last 3 or 4 days with only 1 today.
Wow.
We had Jay's Driving was closed down the other day. They had some cases there.
Oh, I heard about that.
They had 1 case there. Who the new cases, I don't know. We've had, then last week, we've had 6 cases.
Wow. That is going to hurt Jay's Drive-In. They depend on this season of the year, I think,
Yeah,
pretty heavily.
hope we can get back up and going fairly quick. Don't know the answer yet.
So live on Tuesday night, we're live on YouTube, so
You ready?
we're ready
Okay.
finally.
I'd like to call this Morgan City Council meeting to session. It is July 14th. I'd like to start this meeting. I'd like to welcome those who are here. And I'd like to ask if Jeff, would you give the pledge for us? And Tony, would you give us an opening prayer?
Sure.
I'll put the flag up, and Jeff, will you lead us in the pledge?
Yes. All rise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of
America
and
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under
under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
for all. Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, as we convene our city council meeting this evening, we wish to take this opportunity which we have, Father, to express our thanks and gratitude unto thee for our many blessings. Grateful for this beautiful valley in which we live. Grateful for the peace and we enjoy living here. We're grateful, Father, for this nation that we live in. We're grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy. Thankful for those who have provided those freedoms for us in the past and their sacrifices. We're grateful for the opportunity which we have to serve the citizens of this community. And we would ask, Father, that thou might bless us this evening, that we might have thy spirit to guide and direct us, that we might always do those things which would be in accordance to thy will, that we might do those things which would be fair and equitable and a benefit to our citizens in this community. And that we might always respect others' opinions, and that we might always be willing to listen to others. And again, that we might always have thy spirit to guide and direct us in helping make decisions for this community and for the citizens that live here. We're grateful, Father, for all of our many bounteous blessings. We're thankful for all which thou hast given us. And again, we would ask that thou might bless and protect and be with us this night. And we ask these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Tony. Appreciate that very much.
Amen.
There's on the consent agenda, there's the 2 sets of minutes and the warrants. Take a look at those as soon as you're ready. Either entertain questions or entertain a motion for acceptance. David?
Mayor, I've reviewed the minutes and the warrants and would move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved by David, second by Eric, that we approve the 2 sets of warrants, one on June 9th, the other on June 23rd, 2 sets of minutes and the warrants. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, so you'll proceed to vote. Jeff,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Tony.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously, and they will be approved. Next on the agenda is presentation from the Morgan Chamber of Commerce. Trace, I see her on, she's still muted. Teresa, welcome.
Thank
Ty,
you.
would you like to introduce the concept and the topic as far as what we're gonna be listening to Teresa about?
So this is a annual update and also just the annual request for the next year's funding. Before she starts, I just think they've done an amazing job, and it's been difficult with the COVID situation. A lot of effort and time went into figuring out the 4th of July, even though the activities for the most part didn't happen, but the fireworks show did continue. So we really appreciate everything that they've done to still give us a sense of community. And with that, I'll just let Teresa give you the update.
All right. Just as a kind of a year in brief, we did hold our annual kickoff meeting again this year, the first of the year in January. Again, it was well attended. We're still kind of trying to work out some ideas on how to get even more involvement in it, but we still feel like, at least for now, right now, people are still receptive of it and still coming. And we had our golf tournament we haven't had any lunches because of COVID hit right after that, so our lunches have kind of come to a halt. We did do one via Zoom, and Zoom meetings are tough. They're just, as you guys know, they're just tough for everybody. We did have our golf tournament the 1st of June. It was full to capacity. It was fun to be able to get out. I think it was right after we started opening back up the world a little bit. So everybody was anxious to get out, so it was very well attended. Had to look different this year. We didn't get to have the luncheon and stuff afterwards. Everybody just kind of grabbed the bag and left. So it was handled a little bit differently this year. And then, like Ty said, we had the 4th. We still paid for the fireworks and did all of that. We just didn't have any of the activities throughout the day where we could, be together, raise some funds, different things like that. But we didn't feel that the options that we were given by the health department, we just didn't feel we have the ability to pull off or be able to police some of that. So we just opted for the fireworks. I've heard huge reviews on Morgan Moms, which is a feat all in itself, but everything that we've heard so far is a positive. Everybody was happy. I think part of it was the location. Everybody was happy to have it back at the high school again this year. But anyways, it was well attended, I think, considering everybody was excited to get out. And the fireworks, they put on a good show for us. So we are asking just for our annual membership contribution this year. The $20,000 that we continue to ask for every year, it goes to fund, a lot of these activities. As you know, the fireworks are about, take up a chunk of that. But any questions that you have for me or for the chamber?
Teresa,
Yep.
I've been on the council a while now, and I know in past years, it's been an uphill battle to try to get a chamber up and running. And I just want to compliment you and the chamber, what you've accomplished the last few years. Honestly, I didn't know if it would ever happen, but in years past, it's been so difficult. But I just wanted to compliment you and kind of give you a shout out in the chamber for what you've done the last few years. And I think it's been a big plus for Morgan City to have the chamber where it is today. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. We have a good group of people that we work together well. We can share opinions and not turn it ugly. We have a good group that works together nicely.
Teresa, this is Dave. What do you see going forward with activities? Have you curtailed anymore? What's your thoughts there?
So our next big event for the chamber, we had a little bit of involvement with the fair, very little, but we did try to help and support the fair. Obviously, that's not happening. But our next big event for the chamber is the Christmas, the Commercial Street Christmas. And honestly, we haven't even started in discussions on, this year is so weird, by now we've done several lunches, we've had, with elections and stuff like that, we've had people come up. Obviously, we're not doing any of that, so we were happy that we were able to at least pull off fireworks. Where the unknown, we don't, obviously no more lunch and learns will be going on for the year, or at least for now, I should say. I won't say that they're rolled out for the year, but I don't know. I don't know what Christmas time is going to look like. I don't even know if anyone has dared approach that subject yet, just because it's just, there's just too much unknown right now.
Anybody else, any other questions or comments or thoughts for Teresa?
I do. If you think, I think one of the things, Trace, is get with the chamber and see how bad you really want to do the Christmas thing. And from my experience, if you get a hold of the health department, they're there to help you and help you work through the issues that are obviously facing us right now. And they can help you get with what you need to do, the rules and et cetera. And they're, like I say, they're there to help you. They're not there to fight you. So I think you can put on an event, but obviously there's restrictions and things that you need to do. And maybe it would be worth just reaching out to the health department to see what you can start to do now, start planning now for the Christmas season. Not that I'm telling you what to do, but there's some advice for you.
I will have Laurel kind of see what it's going to look like. We would, so far we've been not able to pull off something for everything that we've done, like I say, other than the lunch thing. So I can't imagine us shutting down completely the idea of Christmas, because our Christmas event brings in $5,000-$6,000 and all of that's donated to, the family in need. And it would be, probably this year more than most year, or more than other years. There might be more need this year than not. Or I should say, the way things are shaping up, it could be just more important this year. So I'm sure that we will try to pull off something. We just haven't even broached the subject yet of what that is going to, what that is going to look like. That will be our next planning, our planning event. We just haven't set. I think honestly, we all hope that by now we'd be able to sit down at a table again and meet and hash some of this out. And so far we haven't. So we'll still dive into the middle of it. I think we just have to get July over with, and then we'll start on that one.
Okay.
Any other comments or thoughts? Okay. We've already put in the budget the money to fund the chamber. I'd like to have a motion to the effect of following the budget and your preference on whether you want to answer the chamber's request or not. If anybody care to make a motion in one direction or the other.
I move, Mayor, that we follow the budget and approve a $20,000 request for the chamber for the coming year.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Okay, motion by David, second by Tony, that we follow our proposed budget and that we put forth $20,000 more in chamber for the coming year. And that would go towards our city dues is what that goes towards.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Go the other direction. Tony,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Eric,
Bye.
and Jeff.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. Okay, Teresa, again, from my perspective, thank you. Thank you for helping to hold the chamber together and the things that they do. You have an awesome group there. Appreciate your words to us this evening. So thanks, Teresa.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the suggestion. I will get Laurel to get started on that. So thank you.
Hey, Teresa, I think you probably already know that Eric's involved with the stock show. And even though the fairs did not happen, the stock show is still planning on happening, having the stock show and sale. You probably already knew that.
Yes, I haven't dived into what it looks like yet, only because, again, I'm trying to get.
That's Eric's background, why he's saying what he's saying.
Yeah, right. And we will, As far as the businesses, we have still been encouraging businesses. We've been sending information out through even my BNI networking group that meets on Thursday. So we're trying to garner some support, and I will have make sure that it gets posted. Everything about the sale gets posted on the chamber side as well, Eric, so that we can try to help drive some of. So that we
Oh,
have
thank you
people.
so much, Tracy. That'd be awesome.
Next time, Denise, if you had anybody else ask to be on public comments? Okay, all right, we'll go past public comments, go down to item number 4. Item number 4 is Mountain Vista Villa conditional acceptance. In your packet, there was a letter from Brent Slater. Quickly, as Tony and Jeff already were, we go through the process of giving conditional acceptance when a building subdivision area has their infrastructure in place. It's all been inspected. It's conditional for a year. And the letter from Brent Slater talks about the amount of money that's there, the amount of money that needs to be left there for the guarantee period. We'd start the guarantee period. We would keep a contingency fund there. And then after 1 year, if things prove out for the utilities and the structures appear to be satisfactory after 1 year, then we give final approval and give the money back at that, the rest of the money back at that point. So that's what this basically is to do tonight, is to start the conditional acceptance period, release a portion of their bond, but still retain a portion of the bond. The Mountain Villa Vista is, I get confused in words and names. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the one where they're building the patio homes up there on the factory property below 600 East. They got the one building started and they're building the others up there. That gives you a rough idea of what it is. Questions from the council on what this is?
What did we approve last meeting? Wasn't that the same to release the money?
Now that was final on the other subdivision. That was on the homes.
Okay.
And that development below, between the freeway and Center East, they've broken into 3 groups: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3.
Okay.
Last time we gave final on the home portion. Tonight it's conditional on just the patio home portion.
So in a year, Dave, you'll be deciding whether or not to give final approval to this Mountain Vista Villas.
Say again, Tony.
I says in a year from now, we'll be deciding whether or not to give final approval to this Mountain Vistas Villas. Tonight we're given the conditional. So.
Yep.
So we'll retain then the 21,318. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor,
Tony.
I will make a motion that we grant Mountain Vista Villas conditional acceptance and return $132,931.42. Return to can be released at this time.
And retain the 21,318.58.
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Tony, second by Eric, that we give conditional acceptance to the Mountain Vista Villas. And that conditional acceptance, we would release $132,931.42. We would retain $21,318.58. We retained for a 1 year time period. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. Okay, Jeff?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
And Tony?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. We have then granted conditional acceptance to Mountain Vista Villas. Okay, next item is item 5. Letter of understanding between Morgan City and Morgan Secondary Water. We've still had some discussion on that. Again, Gary's got some points on that. Gary, would you mind addressing your thoughts on that? Maybe some conditions you have with that.
You bet. So Some time ago, you might remember as a council that we had a discussion with a secondary water company. We don't come across too many commercial and industrial developments. And so the issue became, what should we require a developer to bring to the table when they come to develop on a commercial piece or an industrial piece? And at that time, it was all over the board. The secondary water company was actually requiring just whatever you have on your property to be dedicated to the city. The difficulty is that when the city requires somebody to connect up to the secondary water system, it is actually amounting to an exaction. In other words, the city is actually using our governmental authority to require somebody to hook up to that water system. And so we have to make sure that whatever we ask for is proportional to what the need is. So what we did was we got together. The secondary water company was kind of not knowing what direction to go. And so they contacted their attorney, John Schutz, who is with the water company. And he's one of the, what they call water buffaloes in Salt Lake. And he was good to work with. He understood the principle of exactions and proportionality. And so we put together what we call a letter of understanding, which carries the same impact as an addendum to our agreement. But what it does is just simply clarifies what the obligation of a commercial use or industrial use will be when it comes to water, requiring water, and when a developer comes in to develop. And so we put together the, I think you've got in your packet a copy of the agreement. And there's a whole bunch of strikeout and add in. I did receive a copy from John. He'd gone back to the secondary water company and they had made some comments and we had clarified some things. The mayor and I talked just before this meeting and we felt that there was some clarification needed in the formula in order to really clarify exactly what we meant. And so we have added some language in the formula. And just so you know, I think we ought to put off passing this tonight. And one of the reasons is I'm going to just very quickly, I know attorneys can't do it very quickly, but I'm going to very quickly, as quickly as I can, tell you that a recent lawsuit against Saratoga Eagle Mountain, against Eagle Mountain, they sued Eagle Mountain for their exaction requirement, claiming that the conservation standard that the state of Utah has imposed on all cities really ought to be the maximum exaction requirement for all cities. And just so you know, that conservation standard is extremely tight and very conservative. And if we required an exaction based on that, there are many times when we would not be able to meet our need for water, particularly secondary water. And so they're fighting that battle up there right now. There may be some changes at the legislature, but the bottom line is what I wanted to do is add to this agreement a provision which just simply says that if the law changes, we may have to end up in changing our standards. And so I'll put one more provision in that just indicates that so that we don't get stuck with exacting more than what we should. The other change I wanted to make sure that we make clear is that formula. And essentially the formula is this, and that is that we have a minimum standard in our zones of 10% landscaping. And the standard for watering landscaping, which came actually from the state of Utah, from the engineers of the state of Utah, is 4 acre-feet per acre of land that is developed. And so it would be reduced as a little bit as a result of that. But one of those acre-feet would be for culinary and the other 3 would be for the secondary use. And so in checking with our city engineer, Matt, we determined that 3 acre-feet of water per acre of subdivided land was a good standard for secondary water. And so you can do the fraction work. If you got 10% and landscaping requirement, then essentially you would have 10% of that 3 acre-feet of water, which would be 0.3 of an acre foot of water that would be dedicated to the city, essentially, or dedicated to the secondary water company. And so we wanted to make sure that that was clear in the definition. So we've done a little bit of changing, and I won't bore you with it tonight because we're going to bring it back to you at the next meeting. But it just simply clarifies that the minimum standard is whatever our zoning ordinance requires. The maximum standard for dedication would be whatever the actual landscaping is if it exceeds our minimum standard on the site. And so with that, I think we have some clarification that we can live with. The other thing is that we were a little bit concerned. Some of these water companies didn't know what their shares were worth when it came to equating the amount of water that they were giving with each share. They weren't certain as to what that was, but the mayor's telling me that we a long time ago got a list of those water companies, and we have a list of the amount of water that is attributable to each of the shares in that company. So we're going to go ahead and add a provision in there that indicates that each of the companies will set that. And of course, that doesn't change over the years. We could even put that in as an attachment, Mayor. I was just do that as an attachment to this agreement, because if we've got it, it's not going to change. Nobody's growing any new water in Morgan. So I think we're safe. And so that's really it. That's a long story, or a short story made long by a lawyer, but I think we've got what we consider to be an equitable solution to the issue of how much water should we require a commercial or industrial use to bring to the table.
Any questions for Gary on that? Or entertain a motion to table?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions.
I have a question, Mayor.
Okay,
Well, Gary, you remember years ago, the city used to do the exaction of the water for the development.
Yes.
We quit doing that when the secondary water come along. Is that still is that a viable option? Does it make more sense to revert back to that, or to do what we're doing now, where we're exacting water for the secondary water association? I guess what I'm thinking is, I guess the city could still exact water, then have an agreement with secondary water where we would allow them to use that
Yes.
water to charge their system. Does that make sense? Is one better than the other, in your opinion?
Yeah, we've talked about that in the past, and that may ultimately become the situation. But in the past, whenever we have recommended that, we've been, you remember, we started out with a number of lawsuits over
Right.
water exactions years ago. And then one by one, we resolved those lawsuits and put together a secondary water company. And they were the ones that made the decision as to how that water would be held. I don't know if their decision has changed very much as to how that would be held, but there's a lot of advantages to the city holding the water. One being that we can hold it for 40 years without any losing it for failure to put it to beneficial use. And an individual can only hold it for 7. And so, and then once the city gets hold of the water, we can't let it go. Under the Constitution, we can't sell, we can't give away, we can't lease water. And so there's a number of advantages to the city having those water shares. However, the uphill battle is actually with Morgan Secondary Water itself, in that they're the ones that make the decision as to how that will be held, because they're providing the secondary.
Secondary Water Association can't legally exact water, can they?
No, under state law, we are the ones, by requiring through our ordinances that they give water to one particular company, the city is still exacting water in that regard, in that way. If we require somebody to use a certain utility and that utility only, and then we require from that person so much capacity in that utility, we're doing the exaction. It's the same as if we were doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the reason we have By the way, your water board is kind of the sensation of the canal company issues that are going on right now. I've been in canal company meetings with some of the top officials in the canal companies, and they are amazed at the fact, because communication is the worst part of trying to deal with water and canal issues. And the way that we do it with our water board is that's not waterboarding, but water board. The way we do it with our water board is fascinating to them, and they are thinking of maybe putting something like that into statute, because it's an opportunity to get together with the water board and one of the reasons we do that is to make sure that there are no excessive exactions, either in the water shares or in the piping. You remember times, Tony and Mayor, and whoever served on that board, when they would actually they wanted reinforced concrete pipe throughout the entire subdivision instead of just under the roads, because that was the gold standard. And so we talked to them. We indicated what that meant as far as an exaction went, and indicated the city may end up in having to pay for that. We were sued over it, and with that, we were able to talk them into being reasonable. So anyway, that's kind of the summary, the long summary. Sorry.
Other question, Dave or Tony?
Yeah, so Gary, on down to item number 4, you talk about a formula, but I'm going to suggest only half the formula is there.
Right.
And that is, you've come up with the square footage for sure, the 4356 in that example, which is 10% of an acre. But we stopped short of, in the example, of showing the rest of the equation or the formula that would determine the amount, the acre feet that would be required. And I mean, that'd be a simple process by just adding, if you took that same calculation and took the 4356 times it by 3 and divided it by the 43,560, you'd end up with 0.3 acre feet, just a little over a third. But more than that, I'm wondering if in number 4, we have to start out by suggesting that or just saying that it is a requirement. Landscaping requires 3 acre feet of secondary water per acre. That would be the bullet point of number 4, and then say, for example, and then we could use this example and just finish it out so that we've got the 0.3 acre feet as a conclusion.
That'd be great. The mayor and I did a little adjustment, but I kind of like the way you've recommended it. Maybe what we do is we start out with a standard up front, and instead of putting it on the rear, what we did is at the conclusion of that, where it says 4,356 square feet, we put, therefore, the water requirement would be 0.3 acre feet of water. And then at the very last, we changed the last sentence to explain what the formula is. Landscaping requires 3 acre feet of secondary water per acre of land that is landscaped, but not less than the landscaping requirement for the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe we put that up front, is what you're recommending, is what
I think the bullet point says, here's the requirement, and then here's an example of how that requirement translates to being figured. And again, an easy, if we're calling it a formula, an easy conclusion to the formula is just take your square footage once you've figured that, times it by 3, your acre feet, and then divide it by the square feet, gives you in this case, the 0.3 acre feet. You started out by spelling out the first part of the formula, spell out the second part, so that anybody this one's easy because it's 10% of 3 acre feet is 0.3. But suppose you had, your development was 26,345 acres. How do you apply that to the formula?
Yeah, so it would be, we just put the formula up front, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and again, put the formula, and it's a requirement rather than a formula. You could almost just state the requirement, and then I think the formula that would be, as an example, facilitates understanding it for sure. But I think for the document, the requirement's what's important.
Yeah, the requirement is whatever the minimum or whatever the landscaping requirement is for the zone that it happens to be in, that's what you have to water.
Mhm.
If it's greater than that, then you have to water greater than that. And that's where you get into the exactly what you're talking about, which is the calculation. So
Yeah, yeah.
we'll put the calculation up front and also make it clear that that the minimum is whatever the zoning requires.
Mhm. Uh, Up in the first paragraph, you put the following is a summary of how the secondary water will be required. If this is a summary, where's the entire document?
It is the agreement, the master agreement.
Does that need to be referenced, do you think?
I look at this more as a regulation than I do an amendment to that agreement. That's kind of the reason we put it in the letter form,
Mhm.
mainly because it may vary from time to time. But I guess you could make well, I'd hate to make it an addendum to the agreement.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah, just your opinion on that, whatever you think.
yeah.
Just a question in general. A developer goes to a ditch company and or water company and tries to buy water or shares of water, ditch water. If those shares were not available, does that mean the development doesn't move forward?
We have not had an instance where they've not been available yet because we've got plenty of water that is not being used, not being put to beneficial use. And every time an agricultural area actually changes from agricultural use to pressurized, the amount that is used on the property decreases. However, in the case where there is no water left, some years ago, we purchased from Weber Basin.
Mhm.
I think we purchased 100 acre feet of water in Weber Basin by contract. And so the city's backup is, and we have had that happen a couple of times. We had it happen in, there's two, Mahogany Ridge and Red Rock were the two subdivisions that did not have any secondary water. And so we allowed them, we increased their culinary rates, at least this is what the plan was, and I believe we actually did this, but we increased the culinary rates or the rate for water in those two subdivisions to offset the additional expense of purchasing water through Weber Basin rather than through the secondary water company. So it's cheaper to go through the secondary water than it is to buy the water from Weber Basin, but we do have that 100 acre feet of water that is available for our use. And we have contracted for that at a very good price. I think it's like $130 an acre foot plus whatever the costs, the additional maintenance costs were. Today, you can't buy water from Weber Basin for less than $360, $400 an acre foot. And that'll go up when the Bear River project's finished. They estimate it'll be $500 to $600 an acre foot.
Right. Wow.
So we did
So
good.
yeah, that's great. I noticed Weber Basin is not one of the options that that a developer could purchase from. Is that by design?
That's a good question. So Weber Basin does not have shares that it gives away. It's just a service is what it is. And so when we contract with Weber Basin, we fill out what's called a transfer agreement, and that transfer agreement actually allows us to draw from Weber Basin so many acre feet. But we never get the shares and we never get the water rights. Weber Basin maintains both of those things, and they are just a provider of water is all. These other companies, you do own a share and you do have a right, you're a shareholder, and you do have a right to that, but not Weber Basin.
Okay.
Gary,
Nobody be giving that to us.
Gary, we
Thanks.
bought 20 acre feet for 5 years, if you recall, remember?
Yep,
20 acre feet, and we did it for 5 years for the 100 acre.
I do.
And
Yeah,
actually, we're just leasing that water on a yearly basis.
that's correct.
It's the transfer part. Good. Thanks, Gary. Good work.
One other point, Gary, to today's point about that document, when John Schultz made those changes, he did put 2 footnotes in there. There's a footnote 1, footnote 2, where he clarified a couple things. I don't know if you want to leave those in and take those out.
Sure.
In the,
I want to make clear that this letter applies to secondary water for non-residential uses and not residential uses, because we've already resolved that pretty much by,
hey, there's 2 footnotes in there if you look at and consider if you want to leave them or take them back out.
yeah, I don't have a problem. The controlling agreement, and Dave, there's your reference to the agreement.
Bingo. I was just going to say the same. Put that number 2 up by the summary.
It's already there.
Yep,
Yes.
it's already there.
And I'm good with that. I think that's
Okay.
fine.
I don't, any more questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion to either table this item or postpone definitely.
I don't think we should postpone it definitely. So I'll make a motion that we table resolution 20-17. A resolution adopting and approving the letter of understanding between Morgan City and Morgan Secondary Water Association. Do I have to finish?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion by Eric, seconded by Tony, that we table resolution 20-17, letter of understanding between Morgan City and Morgan Secondary Water Association. Is there any discussion on that motion?
So moving forward, Gary, you want to review this some more and make some changes to it. Is that correct?
Yes, I think we'll accept all the changes except for 4A, and we'll go ahead and make the changes that Dave recommended, and the mayor. The 2 of them recommended that we make it clear, and we'll go ahead and set that standard up front. And then I'll also add one more provision regarding accounting for changes that might occur.
Also, item 5, I think, Gary. Clarify companies.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. That's good. Tony,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
and Jeff.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously with 5 ayes.
Mayor,
Yes,
one more question. Was there anybody from the secondary water company on the line?
they didn't call in, no.
Okay,
They talked about, but since we're gonna table it, just discuss it, we thought we'd wait and have them call back in and when we're ready to pass it.
thank you.
Well, they weren't. Thank you for asking. Okay, next, item number 6. Ty, maybe address this one. It's the land purchase for park area or by Tractor Supply.
Yep, so this is the property just north of Tractor Supply. We talked about this in a closed session before about pursuing the option. So we've come to terms and they're ready to sell. So this resolution just authorizes the purchase for it's about 5.09 acres for $75,000 between Tractor Supply and the river.
Any questions on that?
The agreement has the purchaser paying for the title work. Isn't it customary to have the seller pay that?
It generally is, but when cities are acquiring property for whatever reason, we have always done the title work. So
Okay.
Thank you, Dave. Any other questions or thoughts? Or else we'll entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve resolution 20-21, adopting and approving a land purchase agreement between HSC Morgan LLC and Morgan City to purchase property located approximately 68 west, 275 north in Utah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded and made a motion. We adopt resolution 20-21. Resolution adopting and approving a land purchase agreement between HSC Morgan LLC and Morgan City for the purchase of property located at approximately 68 west, 275 north, Morgan, Utah. Any discussion on that motion?
Well, Mayor,
Tony?
if we go ahead and purchase this piece of property, Will we be putting money aside in future budgets to go ahead and make improvements on this property in the near future?
I would think, yes, at some point we'll need to design what we want to have done. And I've talked about several possible options as far as having some Utah State classes or some folks in recreation engineering, recreation planning to put together some plans and thoughts for us on that as far as things to do over there. There's lots of different ideas and possibilities. Also take a look at some of the state recreation grants to see what might be available down the road with that piece, how we can tie it in and utilize it. Part of the money, as you may recollect, the money we're using to purchase this is park impact fee monies. And there's still a portion there that we can utilize to further develop this piece of ground. As far as current plans, we don't have any specific ones. The last time you may recall, we talked about different kinds of water parks, bike parks, different kinds of different things that maybe we can use that with. So you remember back when we were talking about the commercial street, Jeff and Tony, remember we had a group from Utah State come down. Right. Some of these classes they do as a class project, and they'll just give you several multiple ideas of things to do that they've seen out there. So that's one option we may have to give some options on what to turn that park into. Ty, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, so my first step is also what the mayor talked about, but the Wasatch Front Regional Council also has a transportation land connection grant that's in October. So that's another grant for the planning. It's only used for planning trail systems basically. So that would be a good starting point too, is to apply for that, just to get a little bit more help on design ideas, and we could do that in conjunction with property over by Yonge Street Bridge on the other side of the river over there as well, as far as trail system expansion ideas. So we'll be looking at that grant opportunity just to see what the parameters are there as well. And then, Utah State and others would probably be more of the whole park development concept. But as I've been here for the last couple of years, every grant available is contingent on us owning the property. So this is a good first step in that process, so that we can even begin to apply for planning assistance and as well as development. So,
any further questions or input? Okay, we'll call for a vote. Jeff.
Aye.
Tony.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
And Eric.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. We passed resolution 20-21. Okay, item number 7 on your agenda, resolution 20-22, stormwater agreement with Wardell Brothers. I'll let you go ahead and address that and discuss that. What that is, that's over on the Deb Evans property, across the road and in the field there, in front of the old Kerrigan Motor Building. You may or may not be aware that Wardell Brothers are building some apartments back in that piece of ground that was owned by Deb Evans. Okay, Ty.
yeah, so this project didn't come through Planning Commission because it was already zoned for what's proposed, and there's going to be 5 units. This agreement basically puts the onus on them that they're going to agree to maintain the stormwater facilities. They're going to contain all of the stormwater on site, and because we regulate stormwater, then this just prompts an agreement that they are going to agree to maintain the stormwater from this development from this point forward. So the city won't have any obligation to do that. So that's what this agreement accomplishes.
Any questions on any questions on it?
Is the property a single parcel?
Yeah.
So that this,
Well,
Three parcels.
Yeah, the entry has 2 separate parcels for the entry. Then they're also going to do an easement with the adjoining property where the trailer court is, just for some of their frontage requirements. And then where the actual building sit is just the bulk of it's the remaining is 1 parcel.
And so the agreement will cover all the parcels then, is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then just another question, and I'll kind of lead into what I'm after, I suppose, but these 5 units, they're all owned by the same entity. I mean, they're not sold off individually, they're not condominiumized or anything like that.
Correct.
Okay, so part of my concern with the agreement is the property, the development's going to live on for an awfully long time. And this isn't any reflection on the current owners, but businesses can go out of business, for example, and not be able to maintain it. That means that we'd have to come in and provide those improvements. And as long as it's all 1 parcel and for the benefit of all the units, I suppose we can encumber the property and ultimately, and I guess Gary, maybe a question for you, ultimately foreclose on that if we needed to.
We could actually, the agreement itself actually provides for recording with the county recorder's office. So it does go with the land, travel with the land. It's a commitment that does travel with the land. And so we could actually go after the owners, the then current owners.
But I mean, if they were out of business or bankrupt or sold or whatever, and they, in other words, they weren't around, maintenance still needs to be provided. The fact that it's 1 unit, that encumbrance could be valuable to anybody that wants to buy the property, as opposed to a subdivision where individual lots are sold off. It'd be hard to encumber all of those individual lots.
Yes, right.
So that said, it seems, seems like it's doable to me. The only other question I had is on page 2, section 3. Gary, maybe just a little bit of interpretation again. Inspection shall be performed by qualified personnel. Do we need to define that anymore? Are we okay?
For the city, are qualified, well, they're, let me look here where you're looking. You're looking at section 2, right?
Section 3, the very last sentence.
Okay, let's see. The annual inspection certification shall be by 30 each year and shall be performed by qualified personnel. You could put more in there. What we would require, there are individuals, there's engineering companies that are qualified to do that. And it would really be the city's decision as to whether or not the individual that was giving the report was qualified.
Yeah, I just worry that an owner may say, oh, well, this person's qualified, and we say, no, he isn't. I don't want to create a big burden either, but at the same time, I don't want to create confusion later.
So this agreement, Ty, did this agreement come from an outside source, or was it, because I didn't draft it, and is it, do you know, Denise, whether it came from an outside source? Do you have a Word copy? Because what we could do is just add the words as approved by the city under there.
That actually came from J.A. Jones. Matt Harbison sent that agreement to me, so I do have it in Word.
Okay, so we could amend that last sentence to say the inspection shall be performed by qualified personnel as approved by the city.
Yeah, that could tighten it down just a little bit.
Okay. Is that good? I think that would be good. That's a good.
Yeah,
thing.
thanks, Gary. That's all I had. Thank you.
I've got a question. How many of these out there do we have out there with some developers or stuff? Is this the first one, or is this, what number is this? How many do we have out there?
I don't know how many. Typically they go with associations. I know like Mahogany Ridge and there's some people that own it, but we go and inspect it and require the upgrades. But typically typically the city will take ownership. But in this parcel, there's no infrastructure or other storm water to pass through an adjoining property. It's all contained to themselves. And so the design of it, and it's not in a public street or anything like that, it makes more sense to us to not own it.
We've started in these agreements, as you know, we did one for Pheasant Run. There's one up on Mahogany. And then there's, as you know, there's one over there by, there's one in Wasatch Shadow. There's a pond over there that we maintain. There's one over there in Red Rock. Most of those earlier ones we maintained and we took ownership of. Now the last 2 or 3, we've had the HOAs and the developer maintain those themselves with this type of agreement.
You know, I think we have to recognize that, you know, the potential's there that we could own those also. Again, if nobody's there to back it up, it still needs to be maintained.
Yeah, ultimately, we're responsible for the storm drainage in the city. So
Yeah.
what we try to do is we try to share, have that others share that liability with us through contract.
To the degree that we can, but given time, that may weaken, would be my guess.
Yeah.
Further questions or thoughts or motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion. Make a motion that we accept resolution 2022, resolution adopting and approving a long-term storm water management agreement between Morgan City and Wardell Brothers Construction, Inc. for the operation and maintenance of a storm and surface water management facility or improvements for the Wardell development.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff, second by David. We passed resolution 20-22. Resolution adopting and approving a long-term storm water management agreement between Morgan City and Wardell Brothers Construction, Inc. for the operation and maintenance of a storm and surface water management facility or improvements for the Wardell development. Any discussion on that motion?
Ray, do we need to include the little change that we had on section 3?
Jeff, is that okay if we include as amended?
That would be great.
Okay, thank you, David. You okay with that also, David?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Thank you, David. Appreciate that. Is there any further discussion or question? Seeing none, proceed to vote. Jeff,
Aye.
Tony. Tony,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Eric.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. We then passed resolution 20-22 storm drain management agreement. Next item is Colonial Water Line, resolution 20-23. Ty, would you just describe what that is? In your packet, there's a map and there's agreements on the map. Okay, go ahead, Ty.
Okay, so this is on the hotel property. So when the hotel started, it was approved with just a private culinary line. And if you remember, we did an easement behind Commercial Street with Doug Whitcliffe to be able to tie the line together and loop it. So now it can be fed from either side and it increases the capacity. And by doing that, when you have a looped water line, it has to be owned by the city. It can't be private anymore at that point. So now this is an easement through the hotel's property, allowing us access to the water main that will now exist. The only other thing in the we've been back and forth for about a week on this agreement. The only restrictive part, and that we can eliminate is on 2.6. It just says that we would have to have their approval to do laterals. We've been back and forth for a couple of reasons. One, it shouldn't be that restrictive, but then the likelihood of needing a lateral isn't very likely because the other parties involved in this agreement are the other property owners. To the easement. I've talked to the hotel and they're okay with us eliminating the that 2.6. They don't have any intent on blocking anybody, nor can they conceive at what point anybody would need a lateral. And we just want to probably make sure that we give them plenty of notice. You know, or not interfere with the hotel's operation. The only part of there's 3 existing buildings right now that all share one culinary connection out in Commercial Street. So if those ever change use or they need to upgrade their capacity or they separate into 3 separate meters or services, then they would need a lateral at that point. And it would just connect to the what's going to be gravel when they come straight behind their buildings. And so either way, it shouldn't be a big deal, and it's not a huge deal to they have it in the agreement, but they're okay with us eliminating that 2.6. So that would be my overview of.
I mean, this is an interesting agreement between 3 parties. The hotel property and C Street LLC and then the city. What Ty mentioned is if we eliminate that 2.6, then that still gives potential permission to tap into those back of those buildings, which would now be Larry's gift shop and the news office and the Browning building. Those buildings at this point are serviced by 1 meter. If they're sold and the need changed for any one of those 3 to have more service, I just want to be able to tap in the main line from the back and give them more bigger service they need. So that's the purpose behind that. Questions you may have.
So, you know, typically wouldn't we just provide service through the street to the beginning of the property line? It seems to me that we're facilitating a line in for basically 2 landowners. I guess maybe expound a little bit on the benefits to the city of doing this. Why wouldn't these be their costs to bring them in if it's their property?
So it is their cost. So they are paying for the line. In return, they're just giving us an easement because they're gonna, after they build it to our standard, then we will own it as a water service. And the reason why we've looped it and our benefit is to provide fire protection and having a loop system helps us reroute water if we ever have a leak. So what we've essentially done is for all those existing buildings on Commercial Street, now we have 1 fire protection, but it also allows them to have more capacity than what's in Commercial Street. So any of those existing properties, if they need to upgrade their service, they won't need to cut into Commercial Street. They can go out back and upgrade their water service there. But we're not bearing any of the cost on this hotel property.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to look through the agreement, but I'm not sure it spells that out, does it? That we're not bearing the cost of that? And then,
Okay.
And then second, number 2, if they were to install it, shouldn't that be turned over to us or dedicated and agreed upon? Should there be an agreement for that?
So that's just part of the development. This is just simply the easement portion. So when they finish the line and the hotel's done, then we will take ownership of
And that's been spelled out. That's been spelled out prior in another agreement then.
That's part of the development.
I
And in
think-
order for them to develop, they had to put in their own water line. That's just part of their development.
So as part of their approval with the planning commission,
Right.
that's one of the requirements, and those requirements, as the planning commission imposes on them. Good question, David, because
Yeah.
those conditions become as law, and so they have to loop that pipe. This is just a facility to do it, which is, it's like an easement. For example, if you want to build a driveway, you would first need an easement from your neighbor to build a driveway if you're going to build it on his property, even though the agreement between the two of you would be that you're going to pave it and do all the other things. You still need the underlying interest in the land, which you're very familiar with at the bank. And so that's all this is. It's a very complicated easement. It's more complicated. That's probably the reason you probably are looking at it going, gee, this looks more like an agreement, which it says easement agreement. But really all it is just an easement for the use of land, for the use of their land. The requirements are actually those imposed by the planning commission.
Okay.
Does that make sense, or does that?
Yeah, that clarifies it. Speaking of an agreement, though, difference, Gary, maybe this takes you back to your college days. What's the difference between non-exclusive and an exclusive easement?
Non-exclusive easement would be one where others can locate in it as well. So if for example, fiber came through or a gas line came through or something, and they wanted to grant an easement to that gas line, as long as it didn't interfere with our use of the easement, they could use it for that. An exclusive easement would be where we wouldn't allow anybody in without our permission. We would have to grant permission for them to be able to come into our easement. And Rocky Mount Power, and I think a lot of our easements are exclusive easements for power, because we don't want anybody else in those easements other than us. So that's a good question.
So, I mean, they'll pay, so maybe kind of in summary, they'll pay for the cost, but the benefit, and we pay for the maintenance, I mean, ongoing, but the reason we're willing to do that is because of the loop feature, the nature that provides us better fire protection.
And we have to control it. So we do have to maintain it because it's a public water source. So we have to inspect the hydrants and testing and all of that. It's our requirement. So
Gives us an ability to get on the property to make the inspection.
yeah, and so the other reason it's not typical, because typically we'll end up owning the entire street and the right of way with all of the utilities. So this is just for water.
Yeah, and typically there'd be other beneficiaries down the line, where in this case, they're either limited or there may not even be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
So
First questions, Tony.
So Ty, I mean, I understand the benefit of the loop system. It gives you the redundancy, as you mentioned earlier. So this loop will occur where? I mean, we'll be coming in off of the water main over by the cleaners. Is that correct? I just want to be clear on this.
Yeah, so we just redid the line in 125.
You right?
So we'll tie in from 125 and it'll tie back into Commercial Street.
Commercial Street. Okay, all right.
So that's the two.
That's your
and-
loop. That's your loop.
Yeah. And this upgraded capacity makes it so we'd never have to go back into Commercial Street and upgrade that line that's aging and maybe undersized. So while we're dealing with bare ground, it's a good opportunity for us to upgrade the service for that whole block, if you will.
Yeah, we would just run future laterals in the back, through the back door. Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Question, Ty, did we stub line in off 125 when we redone
Yeah.
over there?
Yep. So that stub out's already been connected to, so we didn't have to do a road cut or disturb anything there.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if we put one in or not when they done the road, so good.
Yep, that was good.
Further questions? Thoughts? I'll entertain a motion if you're ready.
Mayor,
Tony,
I will make a motion that we adopt resolution 20-23, resolution adopting and approving a culinary water line non-exclusive easement agreement between Morgan Hotel LLC, C Street LLC, and Morgan City for the construction, maintenance, repair, inspection, and replacement of a culinary water line. Also, I would like to add that I would strike from this agreement, item 2.6.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Tony, second by Eric, that we adopt and pass resolution 20-23. A resolution adopting and approving a culinary water line non-exclusive easement agreement between Morgan Hotel LLC, C Street LLC, and Morgan City for the construction, maintenance, repair, inspection, and replacement of a culinary water line, and the elimination or the deletion of item 2.6. Any discussion on the motion? See, now proceed to vote. Tony,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
and Jeff.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed, and we passed resolution 20-23 with the one deletion. Okay, next item, capital improvement list. What every year we need to come up with, and we work in conjunction with the COG and develop a list with COG. The list you have before you is some items that staff, tie-in staff have put together as far as projects they see us looking at in the future. What will happen to this list tonight, we're welcome to add things to it, change them, question what the projects are, see if there's new projects you want to add. You're welcome to re-rank these projects. This is merely a proposed list to start with. So if you want to re-rank anything, you'll notice page 1, short term, we got some high, medium, and low. Let's see, sorry. Ty, you want to screenshot yours?
Okay, sorry.
Ty and I did some work on this afternoon, and we have a little bit different format for you to look at. Scott, Ty was trying to screenshot that to look at that. We've taken that list of projects and Ty's broken them down into the thing that you see on your screen. Page 1 would be short term, and it's got high, medium, and low projects broken out there. So with that said, pleasure of the group. Would you rather have Ty explain each one of them and take that time, or would you rather just ask questions of the ones that interest you or questions you're wondering about? What's your preference?
I think maybe it depends a little bit, Ray, in adopting the schedule here. Is there anything binding about that, or is it
No,
merely
nothing
for
binds it at all. What we do this for, David, is basically as grants come along, a lot of the grants out there ask if you have it on your capital improvement list.
Mhm.
Some of this stuff may not be done for 10 years. Some of the stuff may never be done. Some may be done next year. So there's good question though. There's nothing binding to this list. As far as project, amounts of money, year, nothing binds it except this is our, what do you call it, wish list or hope list for projects to be completed in the future sometime. The years that Tony and Jeff and I have been around, we see some of these projects go away and never happen. We see others add to the list and jump to the top the very first year they're put on. So this is just a fluid document to give a best shot at what potential projects are. Again, at least from my work perception, one of the reasons I'm on the list is most of the grants out there ask if that's been on your capital improvement list.
Mhm.
The other thing we'll do with this, so you're aware, they will, in whatever form we pass, we'll then take that next Monday night, we'll meet with the COG. The counties have done the same thing with their list. And we'll combine the city and county list together with the joint COG list, the joint city county list.
Okay.
And with that said, if you want some of the things, maybe you understand them, something maybe you don't. Let's go this direction. Maybe ask Ty from the screenshot you can see. If there's any things there you want to know what they are, you're welcome to ask. If there's any questions, I'll have Ty move the screenshot to the next part of his list.
You know, being new, I could probably ask about each one, but I won't do that. I may sit down with Ty separate. You know, I just comment though, I see the loan amount that we need to borrow. I mean, if you add the two together, it's north of $9 million. Again, to move forward with any of these projects, they'd be brought up individually,
For sure.
Yeah.
other than the ones that have already started, of course.
Yeah, so just for perspective, I'll just give you my perspective, David, since I've been here. We've done 5 projects. We've completed 5 projects on the list. One was the hotel. We did a sewer treatment plant.
Mhm.
We built a new substation. We did Commercial Street, and we also did the Yonge Street sidewalk project. And so 2 of those were done with grant dollars. So it's stuff that we're all working on. Like you just pointed out, there's more money here than we have available to us. So every budget year we kind of go through that process. And right now we started the Yonge Street Bridge. There's potential that we're going to need a substantial loan on that, but we just work through it as we go. But there's nothing that says we have to do any of these. But there is need, probably more need in the city than we're generating in revenue. So it's a constant, constant conversation of what can we get done. And if there's an opportunity for a grant, we might do a lower priority or a smaller project, that's on our list before we do a higher priority one, just because of the cost involved.
Ty, in light of the fact that if we're going after grant money, we need to have a project on this capital improvement plan. In light of what we just passed tonight, would it make sense to put something to do with the piece of property that we just agreed to purchase tonight? Would that probably?
Yeah, so we have, so only.
Let's do this. Go back to your top of your list, your screenshot. Just briefly indicate what each project is in a quick summary, and then thumb through the whole list, both pages.
Okay, so Yonge Street Bridge, we're familiar with that. Shows which fund we're using. Fiber intranet. So now that we have Utopia, we have an opportunity to connect all of our facilities, our substations, our well houses, our pumps, and every place we put one of those, we can build a intranet or our own connection wirelessly, so that our all of our workers can use tap right into their devices. The next one is the water line project that we just started. Diffusers is an add-on to it's kind of the next step at our sewer lagoon systems, where we have aerators that are on top. They're high maintenance. They're not very effective, and a diffuser takes the water underground and just lets it percolate up through, and only requires running 1 or 2 pumps. That's kind of the next step out there. This roads project is a leveling course and overlay that we're planning for next year on Island Road. So it essentially go on 300 West and around the corner for the part that the city owns. And so that's kind of on our, that's what we want to accomplish with next year's maintenance budget. It's not a full replacement, but that road's in desperate need.
Why is there a lift station on that one? Oh, I know. Never mind.
It just identifies
I got it. Never mind.
where to. So we need to upgrade our public works building in order to accommodate all of our departments, put them all under one roof. We don't have any property identified at this point, but it's a need. So if we ever have an opportunity to build a public works building, that's on our list. This is at the park. We need to redo the entire sprinkler system. We've budgeted for that and then held off a few times. Just as the budget year goes, we've had other things come up that took the money. SCADA system, again, just helping the park connect to the rest of our systems, control it remotely, so they don't have to manually monitor and start the sprinklers. The next one's lower priority. So on 700 East, we have segments that have curb, gutter, and sidewalk. We've required people to have curb, gutter, and sidewalk, but it doesn't all connect. So if we can get another sidewalk grant or some assistance there, that would be something good to accomplish. We've got more population all the time over there without a sidewalk to anywhere. The cemetery, we've have plans to put a new shed and equipment building at the bottom of the South Morgan cemetery, and it would help house other equipment. We drag a lot of equipment back and forth right now, and we've had a high demand in burials, and so that's what that is. Any questions on the first page? And you can see all of these are just like in the next year or two possible projects.
Ty, when it says sources, like, for example, the 45 fund, is the 45 just the accounting number?
That's a capital improvement fund. So 51 is water, 52 is sewer. So it kind of just corresponds with the department.
Okay.
So, you know, we have to, if we ever did a grant or a loan application, we'd have to identify the matching source. So that's kind of where that comes from. So medium term, that's just out, you know, maybe the next 4 to 8 years. High priority is just that going full mechanical at our sewer lagoons. When we applied for the money to do what we've done, we called that kind of stage 1, and we would be, if we ever have to go full mechanical because we're failing to meet the environmental requirements, we would go a lot more heavy on grant the second time. That's kind of the strategy there. Because we've done everything we can, and our sewer rates are as high as they should ever be on where we're at. North Morgan, that's an upgrade to a tank and our water main. It's under capacity, and also getting a new tank would provide fire flow higher up on the mountains. A lot of the developments at that same level are a little higher than the tank. So, and then there's the parks. So the new trails and parks, that's just a medium priority. It's ongoing, but of course, if we ever get a grant, I think it was Tony that asked that question. That's on our list. Rebuilding roads, it's ongoing. It's hard to estimate right now what the current need is, but if we ever get specific road money or opportunities, then that's on our list. This public works shop, I think, is a duplication. I think I already had it on the other page. Yep, it's right there. So I could delete that one. Land purchase, it's just our cemeteries have a limited capacity, and if we have an opportunity to buy some property there by the North Morgan Cemetery, that's on our list. Then river restoration and diversions. We've talked several times about doing some projects with the NRCS and the county. Right now, most of our discussions have been more countywide plans and not specifically in the city. But you know, if something comes up there, that's on our list. And then this land purchase by State Street is actually an additional property, not the one that we just approved tonight. But if we can, I think we've talked about the other options before in a closed session. So that's on our list if we ever have an opportunity to. Yeah, it's not likely that we'll get grants, but anyway, that's what we have on the list. It's not comprehensive. There's several electric, there's line replacements and things like that with the electric department, but the likelihood of getting a grant for that enterprise fund is really low. So those are things we just need to fund through the power department itself. But that's kind of a good snapshot of what we think of the need that we have that would be potentially grant eligible or low interest loan, either through a state agency or the community impact board. So, any questions?
Any questions or any other projects you'd like to add, or would you like to change the priority? You're welcome to do any of that.
I think I think we're in pretty good shape because I realize this is a fluid document. There are a couple that I'd question, but I mean, really, it's once again a fluid document, so I'm not really held up by some of the stuff I've seen. But
Some may not happen.
yeah, that's the thing. It's fluid document. I mean,
Any other projects you can think of that you'd like to put on the list you've thought about or wondered about?
I think for me up there, the Yonge Street Bridge is up there. I think that's important to us to move forward. I like seeing that. So I like seeing the internet and Wi-Fi connections to the facilities. Not only can our employees access that, but it'll also help with your SCADA system. Get that more reliable, definitely. So I think those first two make sense to me.
I was going to ask, do we incorporate the fiber internet Wi-Fi with the SCADA system down there? Could that just be one project?
So it could be, but not necessarily, because our connections are through a different entity. So most of SCADA is dependent, like you can build it with different communications, but if we take the lead on the internet and we have them available, it just opens up all kinds of options for SCADA in the future, or SCADA-like products. But they could be combined, but not necessarily. So.
Okay.
Hey, that does bring up a question that I have. When we originally talked about Utopia coming into Morgan, did I misunderstand we were going to put some Wi-Fi connections, et cetera, at parks and some of our public places? Has that happened? Do we have Wi-Fi over to the park?
No, we don't, but what we have is we have a list. I have a list on my desk where we've gone through all of the different pricing options. So it's available to us, but they're not for free. So what it is we pay the installation cost for any of those facilities. And so we have like an engineering estimate of each facility on our list. It's a pretty big list. It's everything we can conceive of, but some of them just aren't feasible, right? Like we're not going to run a fiber line to the top of the mountain.
No.
Right. So we have it on our list, just so you know, but it's an $80,000 installation. And then what happens is we just need to start working through those and getting them installed in our own priority. And some of that could be contingent on SCADA, but the other thing is like identifying each point and what Wi-Fi it would provide, so that we can basically maneuver through the entire city on our own Wi-Fi network. So some of it's going to be for the facility and some of it's going to be for the Wi-Fi benefit. But anyway, we just have to order those kind of connection by connection by connection. And then there's just a minimal monthly amount that it would add to our total bill. So if we pay for the connection, then it's only like $7 a month for the internet service for each additional site. So you're correct, it's available. It's just not, that's kind of our next step.
Okay. And I guess my next question to that is, do we really need it over there? I mean, what would be the use of,
At the park?
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of that is to access the control. We also have a well over there.
Right.
That we can connect. And so as long as we have that infrastructure need, and then we can put out our own Wi-Fi signal, then it's not just internet, it's our intranet, so that our employees can log straight into the system. And as we get more online services and more of our own products online, when they're logged into the system, they can control the SCADA and things like that. They could do our map upgrading and stuff like that directly from whatever device they're on. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just a work in progress. The more we go, the more opportunities we have to add another location at a facility. That's kind of what we're working towards.
Sure.
Just so you know, tomorrow morning, we're going to have a news conference up in Layton. With Utopia, we now have a camera that essentially scans the hillsides. I don't know if you knew about that, but it scans the hillsides of Layton City, and it can pick up from 2 miles away a flame that is 6 inches or more, 6 inches or higher. And so it has pixels that essentially pick up everything that goes on in the mountain, in the Wasatch Mountains, just to the east of us. And so it scans back and forth. They've also got one down in Payson that scans back and forth. And so it will notify if there happens to be a firework that goes off and ignites a flame, that it notifies us right away that there's a flame in that area. And it's quite remarkable. You'll be able to see it. You can actually see it online. And I'll tell you where it's at next meeting. I'll tell you where you can actually find it or send it an email to you. The other thing, of course, Morgan never has to worry about this, but there are clean air detectors, and they're just a few dollars to put in. But people are fascinated by where the cleanest air in Utah is, especially around the Wasatch Front. But one of these days we've got to put one up in Morgan just to show them what we really got up there.
That'll be the hallmark.
That's a bad idea. Then they'd want to move up here.
I think that's right. So, but anyway, there's all kinds of possibilities. And like Ty says, you just have to go down and figure out which ones are good for Morgan. And it's fun having it at the park because it's faster than a lot of people's homes are. So it's good.
And there's that term out there, smart cities, that I've still been trying to define, but as I interact with other city managers and stuff, it's something we're definitely prepared for. We just don't know exactly what that means, because it's traffic control, it's sensors and monitors and cameras and everything, but we're still just working on the basic build out of our infrastructure. So
wouldn't some of that need to be balanced in a big brother concept? I mean, you don't want to go overboard.
Just what I was going to say, Dave, we're sounding Orwellian here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So we're not doing any of that currently. It's just a matter of getting internet and controlling our own systems. So, but yeah, if we ever did anything like that, we'd have to decide that as a council if we were ready to go that direction. So.
Any further questions, or you'd like to define the priority? If not, I'm ready to entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the Morgan City Capital Improvement Priorities document, the short form for the years 2020 and 27, and the medium term for the years 2020 and 2027.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, motion by David, second by Tony, to be approved and adopt the Morgan City Capital Improvement List, short-term list of 2020 to 2022, and the long-term or medium list 22 to 28, as listed with priorities as listed. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, proceed to vote. Tony,
aye.
David,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. We have adopted the capital improvement list. Okay, down to item 10. Consolidated fee schedule. Every year we pass this schedule, typically around budget time. Some years we've increased the fee schedules. Other years we just modified them, changed them. This year there's basically some changes and a couple additions to that. You got a chance to look through that. Maybe we can just walk you through the changes, the proposed changes first, and then stop and ask questions as you go. Go to page 1. Denise, this is maybe a question you can weigh in on as well. Under documents and reports, it lists electrical connection fees. Ty and I were wondering if that ought to be utility billing report. I'll let Denise look at that while we talk about some of the others and see. There's no electrical connection fee that we necessarily print out and charge people to give them a copy of that. While Denise is looking at that, 2 or 3 pages over in, 3rd page over in, we're talking about business licenses. We talk about storage, the one proposed change in our storage units. We'd have them at $10 a unit. We're proposing to change that to $50, a flat fee for storage units rather than a per unit charge. If we move to the very next page, it's on the cemeteries. We're proposing to add the fee there. What's happening with some of these funerals and gravesides, if they wait till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon to start, and they take a couple hours. It's interesting, people, if they can't visit them at the viewings and the funerals, they tend to take several hours at the graveside. So that's causing our guys just to stand around and wait till everybody's gone before they can cover them back up. So we've talked about adding a fee to cover the guy's time, our employees' time, if the funeral starts, the graveside starts later than 2 o'clock. That's what those 4 are. And the next proposed one is over on electrical connection fees. Ty's got some verbiage on that one. Basically, the first one is, and our electrical crew, currently what their posture is, they're looking at installing the electrical portion of subdivisions, pulling wires, putting in pipe, putting in poles, transformers, so forth, rather than having a contractor do that portion. The first is called temporary connections. If someone's going to build a facility, build a building, in the past we've just gone hooked them up with power and no charge at all. So the first one is temporary connection. We're proposing that we bring in a temporary meter, hook up the connection, hook it, dig the hole, put it in, charge them $250 to put in that temporary panel. That's the one temporary charge. The other subdivision installation. Ty, do you want to tell us the verbiage we talked about on that one?
Yeah, so we just changed that to actual cost of materials, time, and equipment plus 10%. And then we would just eliminate that second line.
Add the word additional in front of cost, eliminate that second line under subdivision installation. And then the next change is proposed, the last change proposed is the one
Planning and zoning.
I get there. On plan and zoning. We have those new lots on top of Mahogany Ridge Hill. They're sensitive lands, and every lot is gonna have to be engineered. Every lot's gonna have to be inspected differently than any other place. We put in a sensitive land requirements, and this is merely a fee to charge or deposit a charge for extra reviews, extra engineering, and extra inspections on those sensitive land lots. So this is
Ty, I mean, Ray, when you say sensitive, is that in a geological or an environmental sense?
geological,
Okay.
up on steep hills
Hmm.
and the terrain.
Okay.
Yeah, I went through it fairly quickly. Any questions you've got on any of those? Or any others you saw you'd like to question or ask about in that document?
Lost my place. My perspective is I like the electrical connection hookup fee. I know in the past I had some trouble with that. It would be nice to have the city be able to do that. So I appreciate that one, Ty, being in there.
I think it'd be great to have the city go in and just go in and get that done.
Well,
As we've had in the past.
oh, and I mean, trying to find a contractor to do that was a nightmare for me, but this would have helped out a ton. In fact, it did help out a ton when they did it for me. So I appreciate that one being in there. There was one I had though. I'm just going to ask the question on the burial fee. Is it a problem having our guys? I mean, I could see where we'd end up paying them a little bit of overtime to come back in and after a burial. Is it a big problem? I mean,
Yeah, so we actually currently have it that it costs, we just charge it's the mortuary we charge the $100 to for the procession. So when they do their scheduling, we already communicate to them that it costs $100 if it's going to be scheduled in the afternoon. It's not just because people are lingering, but the scheduling needs to, if it's before 2, it's just $100 less, right? So people still hang out. That's just what's happening, but that's not what the charge is. The charge is just what the mortuary, what we charge the mortuary for the funeral. So if the procession's not planned to come in until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, we of course schedule for that, but it works better if they're scheduled earlier in the day, because that gives us time to gives the family time, and then we our guys can wrap it up and still be home. Most of them are always on a Saturday, so it all this does is clarify something we're already doing in our fee schedule.
okay, because I was just like, I hate charging people extra money because they're trying to say goodbye to their loved one and they're running to $215, and now all of a sudden that just cost them $100 more.
Yeah, so it goes to it's between us and the mortuary. So when they schedule it, they'll have the service. We're not, what the mayor was talking about is we have just seen an increase of people hanging out, but that's not what the charge is for. The charge is for the funeral that's planned or not even scheduled till after 2 o'clock. So the other thing is if they don't arrive, like if they've scheduled the graveside, at 1 o'clock, but for whatever reason, they don't show up until after, then it's just an additional $200 because the mortuary is in charge of keeping the schedule. So anyway, just so you know, we're not charging people for hanging out. That's part of it, but that's also one of the reasons why you schedule it earlier in the day. so it gives us adequate time to, gives the family adequate time, but it also gives us adequate time to finish the burial and not in front of everybody.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, it's hard to say, yep, time's up, it's getting dark, we've got to do our business. So anyway, it's something we already do. We're just trying to clean that up in the fee schedule so we have something to point to. And that's usually what all of these fee schedules are. Our power department's already decided to do subdivisions. This just puts it in the fee schedule, so it gives them something to point to as to why we charge that amount. So, and like the sensitive land one, that's in our sensitive land ordinance, that it requires a full site review, where a building permit usually is just the building. We don't do the grading and the landscaping, but it's required in our code. And so we haven't accounted for the extra time on our end to review all those site plans that we require until now. So that's why that's in there.
What, will you just take a second for my benefit here and walk me through something real quickly? Because I'm not sure I totally understand this.
Sure.
It's on the net metering. So I'll just use an example here. So let's say that I go ahead and install solar panels, okay?
Mhm.
So there's going to be an $8 customer charge per month, no matter what, right?
Yep.
Is that saying that you're going to pay me 10.1 cent for every kilowatt that I put back into the system?
No, so I got to find out where you're at exactly. So the $8 a month basically turns into the grid access charge. But the idea of doing solar is not to sell us power. The idea is that you would generate your own power for your own needs. We don't necessarily want the power back on the system.
So what are we paying customers that are putting power back into our system?
Just credit. We don't pay them. It goes as a credit on their power bill, but
it isn't
hardly ever would they generate more than they used.
But it wouldn't be based on, it would be based on what we're actually paying for power from one of our generators. Is that correct? I mean, I don't know what we're paying for power, like maybe 4 or 5 or like.
Well, it changes hour by hour, and so I'm gonna have to see what that was, but I thought, so at the bottom, so it's 4.4 cents is what we pay.
Okay.
So, you offset, but 4.4 cents is what we pay because that's closer to what we pay for wholesale power.
Right.
There's certain parts of the day, which right now, that part of the day where solar is active, it's more like 2.5 cents because there's so much solar out there. So for those couple hours of the day, the price of power just bottoms out because everybody's generating solar. And then the rest of the day it spikes because at night there's a higher demand than what people are producing. But our average is about 4.5 cents.
Here's my question in a nutshell. Hypothetically, if I was producing all the power I needed with my solar system, okay, and actually charging up Morgan City's power grid, so to speak, it would cost me $8 a month, just a flat fee. Is that correct? And
Yep.
then I would be getting a credit of 4.4 cents for every kilowatt that I was returning into the city system, correct?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Okay. Want to be clear on that. So
Other questions? Thoughts, things you want to take out, things you want to leave? Denise, could you clarify that on page 1? What that?
I just took this off of the old consolidated
Right,
fee schedule, so I'm not positive what that was, but if you wanted to change it to the utility billing report, I would just suggest deleting that item totally, because when residents come in and they ask for a printout of their utility bill and what they're using throughout the year, we do that as a courtesy so that they can do equal pay or figure out, you know, a problem they may be having. So if you want to change it to utility billing report, I would just suggest to leave that line item.
Or just delete totally out. Okay,
Mhm.
that's fine. Thank you. Okay, further input, questions, thoughts? You want to accept it?
Yeah, Denise,
Change it?
Denise, as you work with this on a day-to-day basis, does there anything that stand out that demands a change? Do you get, or are there areas that you get more complaints than others, for example? Or does it seem to work pretty good for you?
So far, it's working pretty good. We don't have a lot of complaints when we charge individuals, so there's not
Okay.
a lot of changes that I would make.
Okay, good.
Any other input or thoughts?
Just for David's benefit, just the fee, anytime you do a fee, it's to offset the direct costs associated with that service. So it's not a, you know, how much do we want to make in this area?
Mhm.
It's based on our time. And so that's why some of them are just flat fees, because it varies. It could be more, it could be less. But that's where the thought process is when we go through these, we have to sit there and think, how much time does it really take to do X, Y, and Z, or materials. And so
Do you ever have to document that? Here's what the expense is, so that you know that you're not charging too much?
No, we just have to continually evaluate it. But once it's adopted by the council, then that's just what we
Sure.
charge. So,
Yeah.
And you can average that. It can be an average over time. So as long as it's tied closely to the costs.
Mm-hmm.
That would be true as a hookup fee as well, right?
yeah, so that 250, that's a real conservative of what their actual time and effort is to go connect someone to temporary power. The other thing, that power is not metered, and then we come and dig it all back up when they get full power, and then we store the panels and all of the equipment. So it doesn't necessarily cost it's not all of our cost of buying the panels, installing them, but it's a pretty good. I mean, if it goes smoothly, yeah, then that's a good number, but it's not excessive. Well, put it that way.
Further questions, further input? Things you want to adopt in there, the changes, you want to eliminate some? Entertain a motion. If you're ready.
What changes did we address, Mayor?
Okay, the first page would be, take that electrical connection fee and document portion, just delete it out. The next change we talk about is the third page order. We talk about storage units, changing them to $50 to total, instead of $10 per unit. Our next page was one on cemeteries. Again, Eric asked a good question on that, and I appreciate Ty's explanation. Is this the mortuary charges that up front? It's not something we tack on the end after the fact. And I just had to do a start time, not necessarily if it lingered. I was appreciate Ty's explanation. Next one is electrical connection, the temporary connection fee at $250. Subdivision installation, we merely added the word actual and deleted that bottom line. We had a suggestion. And then we did the site plan review for sensitive land. Those are the proposed changes. Again, you can accept part of them, some of them, none of them, whatever your preference is. It's just, and again, this is a document that's in flux, changes, workable document.
No, I didn't see any fee for the annual city Christmas party.
There wasn't one there, but we could add one. You think First National Bank like to sponsor that?
Yeah, I don't think I want to be the sponsor.
But Mayor,
Tony,
I will make a motion that we adopt ordinance 20-03, amending Title I, Chapter 1.15 of the Morgan City Code, amending fees, the consolidated fee schedule with those changes that you have just described.
basically, the change would be adding the word actual and deleting that third line on the electrical piece. Those only change, and then the change of deleting the electrical connection fee on page 1.
Right.
Is there a second?
Second,
Sorry, I missed that.
second,
Okay, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, motion by Tony, second by Jeff. We adopt ordinance 20-03, an ordinance amending Title I, Chapter 1.15 of the Morgan City Code, amending fees of the consolidated fee schedule to include those fees highlighted in the schedule. There's 2 changes, that being of deleting the words under document reports, electrical connection fees, and changing the wording on the electrical connection fee to actual cost, and deleting the 4th line. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, see no, proceed to vote. Okay, Jeff,
aye,
Eric,
Aye.
David,
I
Tony.
Aye.
Motion passed. We've now passed the ordinance on the consolidated fee schedule. As you look through this, if you got anything else you got in mind and want to talk to Denise or Ty about, please feel free to reach out to them. Because actually, this is a document that can be changed. It's in flux. We can adjust as we need to. Okay. Bring us down to any reports or business. First off, any council members, do you have any questions you'd like to ask or reports you'd like to give? Or you can think about it. I'll let Ty go through his first and come back to you if you want to do it that way.
That'd work.
Okay. Ty, give us your report, if you would, please. And I'll come back to the council for any reports or questions you may have.
Yeah, I think we started the meeting talking a little bit about COVID, so it's still increasing here. Our offices are still by appointment only. We're keeping our distance as far as employees. The Utopia, we're up to 635 connections now, so it's still progressing. I think I mentioned UAMPS on the carbon-free power project is at the crossroads of funding the next site, the next milestone, or anyway, the funding that would take us through phase 1 on that project. So they're going to be putting out the notice, and we're going to need to adopt that as a council. There's been some changes in the contracts with DOE, and things keep progressing and changing, but there's a town hall meeting on July 21st from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a virtual town hall. If any of you would like to participate and ask, learn specifically the ins and outs of that project and ask any questions that you may have. And then in September is when that'll need to be adopted.
maybe Denise, could you send us the information on that? Forward that.
Oh, she's muted. You're muted.
Yeah, if Ty will send it to me, then I'll send
Okay.
the information out to
Yeah,
everyone.
great. Thank you.
And then just so you know, the June financial statements just came out today, but there's it's a little premature. It's kind of nice to have them so responsive to get the financial statements, 14 days into the next month. But just so you know, there's a lot of reconciliation to do because it's our end of year. And so we still have our road maintenance project. That's a big expense, and then some COVID spending and things that we're just now getting the bills for that will still be part of last year. Everything that was spent in June hasn't come in yet. And so it's still a good indicator of where we're at, but by the time we go through the audit, those numbers will change, just so you know. The other thing we noticed is Kennedy has some of your personal emails on that list, and we probably just need to know if you'd like that to go to your Morgan City email, since it is an official document or part of your official capacity. And so just let Denise know, and she can. What's that?
I'll vote for that.
You're okay with your city email? Have that go to your city email?
Yep.
Dave, I did email Kennedy and add you to the email list.
Oh, great.
She hadn't put you on the list yet, so you'll receive them from now on.
Good, thank you.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure exactly how that list was generated originally, but it would be good to keep it on your work account. So
Yep.
I don't have any more updates unless there's questions. It's just been a lot going on. Crazy how busy we are. I'd just like to thank our staff. So if you think about the agenda that we just had in front of us, that's a lot of time and effort to keep that amount of things moving and doing it remotely. So if that doubt of, hey, are our employees really working at home, creeps into your mind, or if you have anybody really question that, I just really appreciate all the work that they keep doing, and it feels disjointed. I'll be honest, I miss seeing everybody in the office, and I forget. Denise keeps me more connected where I'll have a conversation and forget to include people. We're doing the best we can, but I just think under these working conditions that it's still a lot going on, and Morgan's in really good shape. Things are moving forward. Our economy seems to still be healthy. We've got a major road project or water line project that turned into a road project. I should say it that way, but it's moving forward. And then of course we've had problems with that from the beginning, but there's just a lot going on. The hotel's starting to look like an actual hotel, and anyway, just I think there's just a lot to be grateful for right now. So
On that next page, Ty, you got the caboose list. Is there anything on that we need to take a
So yeah, we've got everything lined up. Now it's just a matter of getting the schedule put together as far as like when the sandblasting and painting versus moving it, and the site prep. Maybe Jeff, I've reached out to you a couple times. I know that your equipment's up here was kind of the idea is that you could swing over and start the site prep. So if you have an update for us that way, that would be great. And then also just making sure that you're communicating directly with the railroad representative and the Urbanos and the company that's doing the sandblasting painting.
Yeah, I'm gonna be out of town for next couple weeks, but about 1st of August, we figured we'd get after getting the spot ready for the tracks. That are they sandblasting still and painting over where it's at, or did they say it's decided?
They could do it. Yeah, they could do it either way. We've got the contract in place. We've selected the entity, but that I forward you to an email from Rachel Turk that has kind of the contact list of everybody that's doing a part of it.
Yeah,
So that's narrowed down to just that group. So if you would just coordinate directly with those entities, you know, so when it's time to, one question that we still have that's out there is if they go ahead and prep and paint it where it's at, is it going to cause problems to then move it without causing any issues?
Debate on that, I guess.
Yeah, so that's just one of those things we're trying to figure out, because I think they're ready, but the railroad's also moved the caboose from where it was back behind the poultry building. And so anyway, we just need to keep that conversation going. So anyway, it's coming. It's all identified now. It's just a matter of getting everything lined up, and a lot of chicken or egg type things. Who's on first and what happens next? But should be.
Any other questions from the council members or any other updates you've got?
You know, I'd echo Ty's comment there and would commend Ty and Denise for the work they do. As I reviewed the paperwork this afternoon, it was clear that some effort had gone into it. It doesn't go unnoticed. So good job.
All 76 pages.
Yeah. Ray, I'd report also that, you know, we talked a little bit last meeting about our self-audit on internal controls, and I took the report that I took the training in the class. It's 45 minutes to an hour, and it's well presented. It's an easy one to work through and well worth your time. And I know if we can say we all did it, I think it was another 20 points or so, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And then just my last comment is directed towards Jeff. You know, I've been looking at the background there of your surroundings. Are you over at the church?
No, nope, I'm not. I'm in our remodeled office.
Holy smokes. Those are high ceilings and the cathedral lighting and all. That's impressive.
I thought it was maybe a different city council's chamber.
Yeah, we'll all be there next time, Jeff.
I'll be grateful to get rid of this computer and be back over in the office building. These things. I'm
Yeah.
not talking on computers.
Is that at your house?
No, it's in our shop.
Okay, gotcha.
Just like a church over there, Dave. Just-
Yeah,
Except
Okay.
the humbleness.
you could hold services, right?
Ty,
Come on
Yep.
over. They pour you a Coke.
I just be grateful you're not down in San Juan County. I see that they had 6 deaths down there today.
Yep,
Oh,
I'm grateful for other reasons. But if you could put San Juan County close to anything else, it would be awesome.
They said they're having a terrible time down there, huh? Does it have to
Yeah.
do with the reservation, do you think, or?
Yeah, yep. Yep, most definitely.
Too bad.
Just a lack of capacity and resources. It's there's not a lot of medical conditions that don't end up getting flown out of there to Grand Junction or somewhere.
anything else? Hey, Dave,
No, thank you.
Nope, I'm good.
okay. Gary, any other words of wisdom for us?
Stay safe.
You'll
Yeah.
save it for next time.
And a lot of thanks to Gary. So
Yeah. I
we have really good support.
I'd
It's
like to
amazing.
thank Denise for the way she helps behind the scenes. Denise does a lot of work to keep things straight, looks at them and adjust stuff that, you know, Gary and I look through. I appreciate Denise and Gary and the things they give to us as well. We'll end with that. Okay.
He's the only person that I know that thinks ahead of me and for me. So, for 25 years she did that, and so I really appreciate you hiring her so she could do another 25.
Okay. All right. I'll declare meeting adjourned then.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thanks for your input. Thanks for your diligence in following through and helping the city out as well.
Thank you.
Stay safe.